This is something that I absolutely love. Okay, so there's this meme of uh, Greta Thunberg saying, "You ruined my childhood," and there's like a parrot on her shoulder, and that parrot has the head of George Soros, because everything is a George Soros conspiracy. And this is a thing that they bring up all the time. George Soros did this. George Soros did that. George Soros is part of this conspiracy. He's part of that conspiracy. He's this thing, and he's that thing, and he's the secret, thinly veiled anti-Semitic jibe behind everything. Well, obviously, he is funding a lot of things. People seem to forget that George Soros is a capitalist. He's funding things to make capitalism work. He's not trying to destroy the system and turn everything into socialism, because logically socialism would be propounded by the people who already have the wealth and money, who would lose it under said system. Because that makes total sense, right? Because you're basically an idiot. But the utter hypocrisy here of constantly bitching about George Soros as if he's the only one doing it, only doing it on their side. Okay, first of all, George Soros is not a leftist. He's not one of us. He's a liberal. Liberalism is a right-wing ideology. No matter how badly any American wants to argue otherwise, liberalism is a right-wing ideology. Your country's so far to the right, you don't even know what the left looks like anymore. So, at the same time, you're funded by the Koch brothers, or the legacy of their charitable donations, their philanthropy, etc. You're funded by big oil companies to deny that global warming exists so that profits can continue to flow while the planet dies. That's just one example of the pieces of garbage who, during the Bush administration, claimed that Social Security was going to be bankrupt, or it was going to be in the hole $1 trillion or something like that. But when you actually look at the mathematical formula of how they got to that, it's based on the assumption that the Social Security would continue on to infinity. And there was other Republicans, conservatives complaining that Social Security was racist because white people live longer than black people. Well, first, having you complain about racism is pretty effing funny to begin with. Second of all, claiming that you even care about racism is even funnier. And third of all, it relies on some false assumption that every black person is going to die at 62. Which, maybe you don't know that much about black people, but they don't all live to 62. In fact, most of them live longer and shorter and all kinds of ages in between. And yes, white people do live on average longer than black people. The reasons for that should be really obvious. And if you cared anything about equality and fairness, you'd be looking at that rather than any supposed flaws in Social Security. But you're funded by billionaire interests as well. So as much as you want to scream and cry at the liberals, oh, it's the George Soros Jewish conspiracy, you're funded by the Koch brothers. You're funded by people like them, oil tycoon billionaires and large corporate interests, and frequently Israel as well, speaking of so-called Jewish conspiracies. You really shouldn't be pointing the finger and alleging conspiracy when you're literally doing the exact same thing right there. Instead, if you had a shred of integrity, you'd be saying, my side is right because A, B, C, D, not your side is wrong because George Soros, or where the funding, because you're doing the same thing. You would have to explain why they are qualitatively different and why that's significant, but they don't. They just point to the other guy doing the exact same thing they are without even bothering to attempt to explain the difference. And that's what makes them gigantic frauds, because there is no real debate. You're not supposed to really have one. You're supposed to believe that there's one. And frankly, that kind of honesty coming from either side is almost unheard of.
Thank you for watching. If you like this program, then please head over to my Patreon page and set up a monthly donation. It's your donations that keep this program running. Also, if you would like, please rate, comment, subscribe, and share in various social media.